let's learn about social engineering today. Before we get too deep into social engineering, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what I do, right? Because it's not really all about me, but you kind of need to understand some of what I do to really get the whole presentation. So I'm one of those folks that they call security consultants, but that really means ethical hacker, and that really means I get paid to hack people's stuff all day long. So hats off to you guys. I cannot develop anything. Not so good at developing, not so good at ops, really great at breaking. So I'm going to apologize in advance because I may or may not have broken something of yours, or I may in the future. So my company, SecureCon, we're about 65 people, give or take. We do a lot of work in the federal and the SCADA space. So I spend a lot of my time in substations and natural gas plants and all kinds of interesting places and not so exotic locations, helping them with their cybersecurity. So that's kind of a new thing in SCADA for them. So they have a lot to catch up on. So some of the examples that I'm going to talk about today, some relate to SCADA, some are more commercialized, but I wanted to kind of encompass everything for you because SCADA is kind of interesting. So what is this like social engineering thing? It's kind of hard to talk about really if you're not exactly sure what it is. So we're going to break it down to where it's should be pretty fun to learn about. So all these breaches, we see a new one every day. Every day, somebody else has been breached. And it's always a sophisticated cyber attack. Okay. We're going to talk about what sophisticated cyber attack really means. All right, there's no dark web here. We're not going to anywhere secret on the internet. They're using social engineering to really diversify their technical attacks, to really take the attack to the next level. So when we want to compromise somebody, we just don't want a password. We want all the passwords. All right, we're kind of greedy, us hacker types. And those who do it for good, like me, are amused by it. Those who do it for other purposes make good revenue off of it. So what is social engineering exactly? So it's really all about persuading somebody to either give you some piece of information or to perform some kind of action that's going to further my technical attack. But what kind of information? A couple examples here. Some of it's sensitive, some of it's not so sensitive. I mean, the sensitive stuff's kind of obvious, right? How many times have we been told, don't give people your password, don't tell people things that call you on the phone. But some of the not so sensitive stuff, these things don't necessarily raise the same red flags as somebody asking for your password might. And we're going to talk about why that's important here in a minute. So why does social engineering work? So humans are kind of helpful, right? I mean, we hold doors for people. Please don't hold the door for me if I come to your work, please. We do a lot of physical tests, so part of my job is to see if I can get into buildings that I don't belong to, so don't hold doors for people, all right? I know it's polite, but don't do that. And really a lot of that is awareness. A lot of our clients that we do these tests for, where we actually try to physically break into their environment, they just don't think that anybody would ever want whatever it is that they have, or nobody would show up at their door and try to walk in behind somebody. So education is a lot of why this still works. Most folks are still uneducated about it. We provide a lot of free information. And when we prep our clients for audit, we start to go through how to talk to auditors. So how to talk to auditors 101. One of my favorite ones is I'll ask them, does anybody know what time it is? And everybody looks at their phone. I used to say watch, but nobody uses watches anymore. Everybody looks at their phone, and they're like, oh yeah, it's 1:30. I said, yeah, but that wasn't my question. I said, does anybody know what time it is? I said, the answer is yes. That's it. Another great example of this, help desk folks are really bad about this. So we all know that passwords are sensitive and that we shouldn't give them out. But what about the username? Right, if I'm going to brute force accounts, like I need 2 pieces of information, yes, username, password. So if I have a valid username, that's 50% of what I need already. So that really opens up a lot of opportunity for me. Getting a help desk person to reset my password, or give me my password, it's a little bit difficult, but you can get a username out of them pretty easily because that hasn't been flagged as sensitive yet. They still don't quite get that that's probably bad. So be careful about your usernames. We call this aggregation of data in the Department of Defense. Basically just means taking a piece from here, a piece from there, and putting it all together to do our attack. So the key to success in social engineering, it's all about getting the information that you need without triggering that fight or flight reaction in the brain. And I don't have that slide in here, but it's basically a chemical reaction in the hypothalamus part of the brain. And that's all of my psychological stuff that I'm going to talk about. But it's the BS meter, right? So if somebody says something that's kind of off, you know, that kind of like little tickle back here. Like if a used car salesman tells you that he's got a great deal for you, like that little kind of like hitch in your stomach, right? That's fight or flight. So that's where we would decide how we're going to react to something. So the point of social engineering attacks, to be successful, is that I really need to create a persona or create some kind of situation where it just seems normal, where everybody sees or hears what they expect, and nothing triggers that tiny little tickle in the back of their brain. So who do I target? A lot of this really depends on the situation, but unfortunately, developers are a big target. And that's mainly because of the culture right now. So for developers, it's all about, you know, you can call it agile development or whatever you want to call it. But it's all about results, right? We need code now. We need now. And it just ingrains this, we do whatever it takes to get it done, which is awesome, except for the security side kind of gets forgotten. So I think that was sort of why they wanted a security person here today. So I don't mind being the unpopular one. I'm used to it. Security people, we don't really have a lot of friends. It's okay. Totally fine with it. I don't take it personally. So you combine that we need to get stuff done mentality with, you probably have some type of elevated privilege. Maybe not root, right? But you probably have a little bit more than the average user. And you probably talk to folks who have elevated privilege, either, you know, IM or email or whatnot. Those people are used to conversing with you, and it wouldn't be surprising for them to get an email from you or an IM from you asking them to click a link or to do something that I might be able to use to compromise their machine. So that's kind of why developers are kind of a prime target. Developers and then network engineers are right after, because they're in the same boat. It's all about the uptime. All they need to know is that the network is up, and security just kind of gets forgotten in the day-to-day. Non-technical employees come like third on that target list for a few reasons. They probably don't have elevated privileges, which makes me sad. It means I just have to work a little bit harder to do some privilege escalation. If the desktops are locked down, that may be a lot harder than just a few exploits. So that's kind of our order. That's our hit list. I'm giving out all the secrets here. None of my security people are watching. Developers, network engineers, non-technical folks. So if I wanted to do a social engineering attack, like how do I do that? So we're going to go through a couple of examples. And I kind of picked on a bunch of different companies, all right? So I didn't hack anybody in this presentation. No customer data. Please don't tweet that I've been hacking EY.com, because I haven't. Somebody else has probably done it for me already. But where do we start? So when I tell my junior engineers that we need to really start with the company website, they kind of roll their eyes like, really? Like, we're not going to the dark web, we're not going to go here, we're not going to go there. So, well, we need to start with what they're telling us, because a lot of times company websites are a little bit verbose. We'll put it that way. So there's a lot of information on there that social engineers kind of see differently. So EY.com, which I didn't hack, but if I wanted to, this is kind of how I would do it. Let's look at locations. All right, most people really don't think so much about locations. For a social engineer, this list of locations is awesome. Do you see how many are there? This is fantastic. Because when I want to make a phone call or send an email, I need to make sure that I'm not sending it to the person that's next to the person I'm pretending to be. So when a company is very dispersed, it's a lot easier because not everybody knows everybody. And especially in the larger companies, you get 10,000 employees, you're not going to know all of them. So if I'm going to be Mary from accounting and I'm going to send something to Bill in networking, I really want to be sure that those two don't sit close together and probably don't know each other. So being geographically dispersed really increases that chance. What about jobs? Job postings are really kind of hard to write because we don't want to give out too much information that really helps everybody fingerprint our technology, but we need to give out enough information so that we get the right applicants. So if I wanted to find out where EY's, let's say data center is probably a good thing. I usually look for keywords like infrastructure, network support, keywords like that. Infrastructure almost always pops something. So there were 85 results when I looked for this. So if you look at all the locations, they're all Alpharetta. So that kind of gives me an idea that it's probably going to be somewhere near Alpharetta. We'll find another way to look at this in a minute. So when we're looking at the job descriptions, the ones on their website were actually very good. They really kind of normalized everything. Not a whole lot here that's going to help me fingerprint their technology to write a custom exploit for them. IDS, IPS, proxy, okay, virtualization, Windows and AD. All right, so far that's like everybody almost. That's really not very helpful. But if we look to other sources outside of the company website, this was from the local news channel in Atlanta. Sometimes they just tell you. That's cool. I like that part. So if I wanted to know more about the technologies that they had because I want my exploit to work, maybe I want to know what kind of antivirus they're running. Where would I go for that? I could make a lot of phone calls and pretend to be a vendor and try to target the person that's in charge of it, but I don't really need to. So I love LinkedIn. You won't find me on there on my real name, but I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the phone book for social engineers. I'm actually working on a blog post right now for Tripwire about that, and that's what it's going to be called. LinkedIn is the phone book for social engineers. This is why. I can do searches for current and past employees. I can sort by employer. I can sort by city. Not that I would know, but if you sign up for the free trial of the really great account, it's free for 30 days, and then you can cancel it at like 29. Then you can really start to search by name, and you can get so much more detail than just what's on the public side. So I don't know this guy, but I'm pretty sure that, I probably don't want to meet him in a dark alley because he's in a lot of my presentations. I guess I should probably check where he is now. This is, a little old. I'm not going to be hanging out in Dubai anytime soon, so I'm probably safe, but I should probably just check that to be sure. So he's got some cool things in here. Works for Ernst & Young, that's awesome. Okay, good deal. So if we kind of just scan through this, we see antivirus software in here, and we see Symantec antivirus. Perfect. So I don't care if my exploit doesn't trigger all 55 major antivirus engines. I only care about Symantec because that's what my target's running. So when I make my exploit and I start to obfuscate the payload, I want to make sure that Symantec doesn't get it. The rest, I'll worry about the rest when I need to. So we didn't have to call anybody, didn't go to the dark web, didn't really do anything very fancy. I'm also making this look not very exotic, too, by giving away my secrets. So, it's just about how you look at the information that's already out there. So if we wanted to do some phishing, probably going to need to do that eventually at some point in a social engineering engagement. I really need to learn about their email addresses, right? So that I can start to compile my own list. So if you look on the public figures portion of each website, there are lots of people, their job is to interface with the public, which is great because that means I can get their email addresses very easy. What I'm looking for is the syntax. Is that, at ey.com? Is that at ernestandyoung.com? I really need to understand the way that this is structured. Once we figure out the way that that's structured, the first half of it, either that's first initial last name, first name dot last name, what have you, that can be built very easily. So a little Google, we confirm that, we check their website, we confirm, okay, first initial last name at ey.com. Fantastic. So aside from LinkedIn, we can go to some other really cool resources out here. Data.com is a little different now that Salesforce kind of absorbed them, but a lot of the data is still the same. So a Salesforce account is very affordable. I don't know if they still do a free trial, they used to. But this is another great phone book for me, like a literal phone book. It's got some phone numbers in here, it's got titles. So if I didn't get enough from LinkedIn, I can get a lot from data.com. And I don't really need too much data, I just need their first and last name so that I can put their email address together in my list for phishing. But if that wasn't enough data, you can always go to Facebook. We have this habit of telling everybody everything, including where we worked and where we have worked. And you know, Facebook's engine for pairing up people that you may know because you've worked in similar places or you know certain people. For me, that's a huge tool. So a lot of times we'll create different aliases depending on our target, and we'll start to grow their own little personality there. So they'll have a Facebook page, they'll have a LinkedIn page. The employer will be whoever it is that we're targeting. We'll make up some background, and we'll let Facebook do a lot of that work for us. Twitter does the same thing. I don't really have to look really hard. It's already out there, broadcast to the world. Speaking of Twitter, a lot of people don't know about turning off geolocation on your tweets. So there are only two situations where I use Bing. It's a little embarrassing, but it is worth it in these two situations. The first of which is the Twitter Map API. And for folks who don't turn off geolocation on their tweets, this will go out and pull them. Either you can search for an area or you can target a certain person. This is great because, again, if I'm going to be Mary from accounting, it would be totally awesome to know that Mary from accounting isn't in the office that day. It would be even better to know exactly where she is, which may be pretty easy to find out if she tweets a lot. So I thought this was appropriate. This is from DEF CON. I think this was last year when it was still at the Rio. DEF CON is the big hacker convention in Las Vegas. I just got back from there. I have torched all of my electronics almost and started over. There are about 17,000 folks that go to DEF CON, so it's an experience like no other. But it's a very hostile environment for your electronics. So if you do go, just be careful, right? Like no free Wi-Fi, just no Wi-Fi at all, okay? So this guy is talking about the DEF CON social engineering capture the flag. So that was a contest that they started a handful of years ago to try to help people really see how social engineering works and try to hone their skills. So I thought he was a great example for my Twitter map. So we can look and see, you know, over time where he's traveled, where he is now, places that he likes. Pretty cool. Kind of stalkerish, but still pretty cool. So I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, and this is Crystal City, Virginia. Doesn't really look very interesting there. But if you look at it this way, it starts to get a lot more interesting. Like, I don't know where these people work. Maybe you guys can help me out. Like, I'm not really sure. You're not even allowed to have phones in there, so I don't know about those people in the middle, but they are seriously busted. So lots of good data out there that we're just giving away. So you can manually go look for all that, or you can use an aggregation tool. Multigo is one that's really good at that. It's a little hard to use at first, but it will basically automate and pull all of the data that I just walked you through how to get. And then you just have to spend an hour or two kind of trimming out the stuff that's not relevant. The free version is just fine. It basically just limits the amount of searches that you can do to 2 at a time. But it's all automated, so it's not like you have to restart it every 2 searches. Like I said, a little hard to use at first. You need a really big monitor because it starts to represent things visually, which sounds awesome until you get a lot of things and then you can't see anything anymore. So, Community Edition, definitely go grab it if you're interested. The guys that make it are out of South Africa. They're a little bit slower on their replies if you have questions, but they will get back to you eventually. Let's talk about metadata. I like metadata a lot. You know, I like metadata before NSA made it popular, which is kind of telling. So really, what is this whole metadata thing? Again, more information that we're just giving to the world, broadcasting it. We don't even really know it, though. So there's a cool tool, and I love their icon, called FOCA that will go out and gather metadata. So basically, you point it toward a domain, you can include any of the subdomains that you want to be in scope. It'll go out and crawl, and it will look for basically any documents that you tell it to. So you can whitelist and blacklist. If I don't want to look for PDFs, I don't have to. But I want to, because there's a lot of good data in there. So it'll go out and it'll find them all, and then you can tell it to download. It will download them all and extract all of the metadata. And the report will kind of look like this. So in this certain domain, we found 28 documents and 401 PDFs and 6 PowerPoints. Okay, not so bad. That's kind of a smaller domain. Once you start to get into really large domains, these documents can go into the thousands. So if you're going to use this, just make sure that you've got like some hard drive space, like some serious hard drive space. So it'll pull it down, extract all the good stuff out, and then it'll sort it for you. So if you click on users, it'll give you a whole list of everything that was in the username field on the metadata of some of the documents that you got, which is awesome. Usernames, file paths, which are very useful. It'll fingerprint the software. It'll tell you what version it was running, if it was for Mac or if it was for Windows. Lots of good stuff for me to know when I'm starting to create custom payloads and attacks. And again, we haven't called anybody. We haven't done anything great. We've done GET requests. A lot of GET requests. And that's all we've done so far. So a lot of the social engineering research is very hands-off. You don't necessarily have to talk to a lot of folks. Where this starts to get more difficult is in the medium to smaller companies where they may not have such a large internet presence. Then I have to work a little bit harder, and that may involve some phone calls. So we've got 3 basic types of social engineering, really. You've got your phone, your physical, and your virtual. Now, sometimes our clients will only want 1 or 2 of these done. Sometimes they'll let us do all as part of a network penetration test, which is perfect because it really demonstrates what an attacker would do. You can't really say, oh, well, the attacker, he's not allowed to make phone calls. It's like he's not allowed to call us. I don't really think it works that way in the real world. So we have all this awesome data. And really, we start to plan our attacks from the data that we have. So some of our clients, they come to us with a list. They're like, all right, we want you to do 16 phishing emails. We want you to try to get into these 3 doors here in this specific building. And that's great that they think that they know what they want, but you really need to let the data drive the attack. You make the attack based on the data that you can find online for free, not the other way around. So this is an example from a client that we did, I think this is about 2 years ago. Looking on their website, back to the company website, right? Like it sounds so non-exotic. They put their VPN profile on their public-facing website. I don't know why. I really don't. They took it down after we called them and said, hey, you should probably really not do this, but not before the Time Machine got a hold of it. So it's still there, but you just have to look for it a little bit more. So this is perfect, right? For us, we already knew what kind of antivirus they were running, which was not Symantec, it was something else, by doing all of our research ahead of time. Now we know that they're using the NAConnect client, and we know what server that they're pointing to, and we know that they need this software to connect, right? It's not one of those web-based VPNs. They actually have to have the client. Awesome. So what will we do with this? We decided that we would give them an upgrade. So we basically did the research. Oh, I'm so glad people get this. A lot of people don't laugh at that. It makes me sad. It makes me just want to start playing video clips of it. So what we did for these guys is we made sure that the guy from Network Ops was going to be out of the office that day. It was a Friday. Fridays are good days for this kind of stuff because everybody's thinking about the weekend and nobody's really paying attention. So we made sure Network Guy was going to be out of the office because it was on his Facebook, which was open. Check those privacy settings, by the way. Be sure that's locked down. And we basically told them, hey, we got new equipment, it's going to be faster, but you got to upgrade your client. Got to do it today or you're going to lose your connectivity. So how many of these emails do you think I sent? You think I sent 50? Sent 3. We did 28 to 30 hours of research to send 3 emails. But that's all we needed to get the job done. So that was fine. And the reason we start with very low numbers is we don't really want to send a big blast out to everybody because that really starts to draw attention. in a number of ways. People start to talk about it. Oh, hey, did you see that email about the VPN? And then everybody's digging in their inbox. No, I didn't see that. Which can be good until you get somebody who's security conscious that's listening going, wait a minute, don't click that. Or if they have a lot of IDS or an outbound proxy and they start to see a whole lot of requests all of a sudden for this one website, kind of a problem. So what we did for these guys, in addition to our custom payload that's set up just for them, we bought a domain that was very similar to theirs. So it was, like client-something-something.com. If you're not paying attention, it looks just like their domain. And we went all out, right? We bought the SSL certificate, we bought Whois privacy on it, we were all set up. And we have to do that to really start to get around the spam filters. They're getting more intelligent. So you really got to do some prep. Like the days of sending things with hush mail and things really quick and off the cuff are kind of over because the technology is getting better, which is good. So I don't really have to explain what this is here, I don't think. I speak mostly at security conferences, so I usually have to talk a lot about Java applets and why they're bad and why we use them to attack people. I don't think I really need to do that today, other than Java applets are bad and we really use them to attack people. So not that I would know, but in the state of Nevada, you can register a business for $200. And then you can create a website for that business and get everything all set up, make it look legitimate, and then you can buy your own code signing certificate for $200. Not that I would know. But if you do that, when it pops up to run your applet, then it's signed, and it's signed by a valid certificate. So little things make it more trustworthy, right? From the user side, it's got the little lock up in the URL, SSL, right? And it's safe. It's okay, you can click that. So that's what we had them do. Now, this is probably my favorite slide of the entire presentation. Nothing is happening here. That is an animated GIF. Nothing, right? Because they already did it. They ran the applet. We put our payload inside the evil applet. They're already compromised. But I did let them sit there for about 15 seconds and watch this animated little bar here. And then you have to let them know that they're good to go, right? So now you're all good. And this worked very, very well. Like I said, we sent 3 emails. The first one is kind of my mistake. I sent it to a Mac user, and he replied. He's like, oh, hey, man, I have a Mac. Like, do I need to do anything? I didn't make a payload for Mac because they were mostly a Windows shop. So I replied back, right? I'm like, no, man, you're good. Don't worry about it. We got you. Please don't delete this email, and don't send it to your friends. So little things like that. It's not above what an attacker will do. And that's just one example. We do this a lot, unfortunately, and it works because we really take the time to make it appear legitimate. So if you start to see emails that advertise new VPN clients, you might want to ask before you start looking around. We've actually taken that one step further for another client, and they use the AnyConnect VPN client as well. And we actually just downloaded it and put a backdoor into it and recompiled it, and then sent it out that way. But we already had 2 compromised machines inside the network, so instead of attaching it to the email, we put it up on an internal network share so that they could go grab it from the network share, because that doesn't look as shady, right? Because it's coming from your network, so you can trust it. Right, it's kind of evil, I know. That's what I do. I do it for the good, right? So that's cool. That's more of the virtual kind of attacking. Let's talk about physical stuff. So I love physical attacks. But if you're going to walk into a place where you don't belong, you would better have your story straight, and you would better understand what it is that you're going in for and what you're getting into. Physical attacks are a lot of fun, but they're also a lot of work. Clients are not going to pay me to travel to wherever it is, to sit on site and do reconnaissance for 3 weeks. That's pretty expensive. So I have to do a lot of that from afar, right? From my office in Virginia, or whatever hotel I'm at that week. Second use for Bing Maps. A lot of times you can see more stuff than you can with Google, believe it or not. Their Street View can be a little bit better, and it has this 3D rotator thing, which is kind of cool because you can start to see around the sides of the buildings. So what I'm looking for different ways in and out of the building, right? Things that might look like a service entrance, or, you know, this looks like it might be the main entrance to the building. Lots of good stuff. You know, I need to see, you know, are there guard shacks everywhere? Are there fences? You know, how close can I really get? And what I'm doing is I'm looking to try to pick out some spots for on-site surveillance when I get there. Back to Google. I feel better. Google started adding in traffic cameras to the maps, which I thought was awesome. This is the Bay Area a while back. And while this looks, you know, helpful and innocent and whatnot, when you get into a heavily populated area, if your target building is within the view of some of these cameras, you can watch your target building all day long without pants at home. That's awesome. I don't have to try to find a parking space. I don't have to try to read the newspaper to watch this building. I can do it all from the comfort of my own office chair. Fantastic. But what am I watching for at this point? So I'm really looking for the way that the traffic flows in and out of the building. Do all the employees use this entrance? Do I see people going around to the side? About what time do they roll in the morning? Are they like an 8 to 5 shop? Are they a 7 to 3:30? You know, like I mentioned in the intro, we do a lot of work in the SCADA space. So, you know, natural gas plants, they work shifts. They don't really work the same 8 to 5 as an office building. So you kind of need to really understand when people are coming and going. And that's important for a few reasons, because we usually try to plan our attacks based on the shift that has the least people, or a certain person that we need to target. Come on, there we go. Okay. Let's talk about Chicago. This is a gig we did a couple of years back, and it was in a multi-tenant office building. So the client was, I don't remember what floor they were on, like 12 or 18, something like that, something very high. And they were so sure of their physical security. They said, we're good. You have to have an access card to get through the lobby, and then you have to have another access card to get through our door. And we have an alarm. You're not getting in. I love it when they tell me that. It's such a great challenge. But the thing about multi-tenant office buildings is, you know, other people work there too. And that's great, because they usually have space for rent. So why would I worry about sneaking in to do reconnaissance when I could go in legitimately and have a reason to poke around and take pictures and kind of check things out? So this was the building management's website on showcase.com. And they have lots of office space available. And some of them were on, I think it was the 10th floor, because there were two. So there were two office suites available on the 10th floor. So we created a fake company, fake business cards, all of that stuff, called this wonderful lady here on the page and told her that we were looking to open a Chicago location and we wanted to schedule a tour because we really liked the location of that building, which was true. It was in a really great location, by the way. So we set up to tour 3 different office suites. Why 3? Because we didn't really want to raise suspicion of just going in and looking at just that one that happened to be right next door to our target. And we wanted to look around a little bit more, and we wanted to see you know, if any of those were unlocked, right, in case we needed a hiding space later. Because you can go hang out in an empty office all day as long as nobody sees you. So they also had some great pictures on their website. Lots of pictures of the building and the lobby and really good stuff. They have a zip car service in the garage underneath of the building, which is fantastic because A, there's nowhere to park around there. And B, that garage is controlled by electronic readers, right? So you gotta have the pass in your car. Well, the zip car has one because it has to be able to go in and out of the garage all the time. Fantastic. They even put directions on how to get to the zip car on the website, which is this picture of this long, weird-looking hallway. Haven't left DC, still at home. This picture, it's kind of hard to see, but once I saw this picture, I knew that we were good. And this is their card reader for their access cards. This is the lobby, right? This is card number 1 that they need. This is a low-frequency HID reader. It's very old technology, but still deployed probably in 85% of the environments that use access cards. But it's also very clonable. So it's very easy for me to get my hands on some of these and then mass produce clones that the reader can't tell the difference. It thinks it's legitimate. So that's cool. We also, when we did our tour and our phone screen, we learned about who cleans the building. That's important for a few reasons. We want to know who cleans it so that we can kind of blend in. Caught the guy taking a smoke break. It's fantastic. ABM is really, really popular, but we needed to kind of see what their uniforms look like because they've changed their logo recently. That's just part of my business. I need to know who's changed their logo so that I can make sure I've got the right one. So they actually order their uniforms straight from Cintas, but you can only do it through a payroll deduction. But that's okay, because at Staples, you can get printable iron-on paper for your printer at home. And on Amazon, you can get a pack of 50 of these blank patches for $1. I had to figure out how to use the iron, because I'm not very good at that. Print out the ABM logo, iron it on very carefully. It took about 15 patches for me to get this right, just so you know. Took it to the dry cleaners, paid them $3 to sew it on, and we're good. Now we've got authentic looking jackets, which is great, just in case we need them to blend in later. So we basically called and talked to the folks that were on the cleaning crew. We said, we're gonna be on the 10th floor. What time do you come through at night? We don't want you running the vacuum while we're on the phone and we're servicing our clients. They said, oh, that's no problem. We don't clean that floor until after midnight. Okay, cool. So when we get to Chicago, we take a leisurely stroll down the street about every 20 minutes after midnight to see when the lights come on the 10th floor. And we have to wait for the cleaning crew because we don't have the code to the alarm. All right, so we have to know when the cleaning crew is going to hit that office suite so that they can turn the alarm off for us, because I don't want to go to jail. It's not comfortable. But we need the other cards, right? Like we haven't got all of them yet. So this little device is a tool for RFID research. It's called the Proxmark 3. It's about the size of a solid-state drive, but it needs an antenna, and it needs a power source, and you've got all this stuff, and you can't just carry it in your arms down the street. Some of the guys will actually thread it through like their shirt sleeves and put the antenna here in their hand, but I have short arms, so it doesn't really work for me. But the read range on this is about 3 centimeters. So trying to get that close to somebody's access card without them noticing that you're trying to get that close to their access card is very awkward. So you kind of have to find a way to disguise it. So this is my RFID binder of doom. I worked really hard on this thing too. I had to like use a glue gun and everything. So I basically just cut the lining back off of this and put the Proxmark in there. The power supply up there at the top is just one of those little charging things that you get at Best Buy or any truck stop basically. About 50 bucks. That thing will power this for 10 plus hours. It doesn't require a whole lot of power. On the other side is the antenna. So that's the low frequency antenna that goes along with the legacy system that I showed you the card reader for earlier. It's about the size of a CD. So a little CD holder and some glue hold that right in place. The problem with this was that the way these cards work is once the reader gets close to them, it powers on the little chip that's inside the card. That's why you have to get your card really close to the reader for it to, before it reads and beeps. But the leather in the binder was actually preventing the card from getting power very well. So I was a little bit sad because that was like really cool. On to version 2. So I love the Grid It. If you have a Grid It, it's supposed to like hold all of your things in place. Like for Mac people, it keeps all of our 600 adapters that we need and this different plug-in and whatnot. And it's great because everything just stays right in place and you just pull it out of your bag and you can find what you need. Fantastic. It's also really great for holding all the Proxmark pieces in place. So what we did was put it all up here, and then we put the antenna down at the corner, and then we slid this whole thing inside a laptop sleeve. All right, so as you're walking, you can kind of swing your laptop sleeve to get close to whoever it is that you need to get close to. So you pass them on the street, kind of do this kind of thing. We got our first read at Starbucks around the corner because they were all walking around with their badges on. And the client said, well, how did you know that those were our badges? They just have the name and the picture on them. We didn't have our corporate logo on them. That would be too obvious. I said, well, that's true, but you gave your employees bright purple tote bags with your logo on them. So it was pretty easy to put 2 and 2 together. So I noticed that there's a lot of RFID here on campus. I recommend that you get one of these RFID blocking card holders, because you don't want somebody cloning your access card and entering places as you. because that's exactly what they can do. Nowadays, I had to do it the hard way. Nowadays, they have newer technology, and this is basically a long-range card reader meant for like parking garages and stuff like that. So it has a 3-foot read range instead of 3 centimeters. It's a lot easier to get within 3 feet of somebody and get a card read than 3 centimeters. So the guys from Bishop Fox actually put a design together that will, it will read the card, it'll put it up on the LCD, and then it will save it to a micro SD, which is right on the board there. So all you have to do is just turn it on and just walk around, and it will just record and save everything all day. Saves everything in a cards.txt flat file, and then when you get back to your hotel or whatever, you pop that micro SD out, and then you can just create all the cards that you need based on the numbers that you gather. Very nice. And no awkwardness trying to get within 3 centimeters of somebody. So we got both of the card reads that we needed. We had both the card data. We rented the zip car for about, I think I reserved it from like 11 to 2. Because I wanted to be sure that we had it during the window that the cleaning crew was going to be there. So we rent the zip car, we all roll into the garage about 10 to midnight, and we take the freight elevator up. Everybody forgets about the freight elevator. It's kind of like dingy and usually in the basement, and it smells funny. Nobody likes to use it. But most people don't put access control on it either, and this allows us to bypass security in the lobby. Even though we had a good card, we could have walked straight through the lobby. We didn't really need to. We just went around them. Used the car, took the service elevator, waited till the cleaning crew was in the office suite, came in right behind with our clone cards. Hey, how you doing? We're here doing some work here, here, and here. We'll probably be in and out of the server room. Or in and out in 15 minutes. Now, what was really interesting was once we got in there, the card reader for the server room actually had a PIN code on it. And that's not stored on the card, so we didn't really know the PIN that was associated with it. But the door was so cheaply put together that you could just use the credit card trick, right? So we popped it with, one of the bad access cards that we had, right? They were not clapping, but we were. So we called them from the phone inside of the server room to be sure that it would show up properly on caller ID, and sent them a selfie of us in the server room. And that was kind of how that went down. So little pieces, little piece here, a little piece there, different sources, put them together, and it kind of spells disaster. So that's my basic social engineering overview. I didn't even go over my time slot too far. I'm kind of low on business cards, so this is me. I will be around after the break if you have questions, and thanks for coming out.